seconds away on Studio 5, we're in a foggy San Francisco, home to the NFL's 49ers and the NBA's Golden State Warriors. Have you always been a basketball fan?
No. Oh gosh, not at all.
We're in the kitchen with Mrs. Steph Curry, Ayesha Curry, talking love, basketball, and a personal passion that's produced a cookbook and a cooking show.
I'm so happy to be a part of this story because it literally is like a fairy tale for me.
Plus, the recipe for basketball success.
Off the court, we're like brothers, and it translates to on the court.
With J-Mac, the Warriors' power forward. Then,
I was an angry kid. I was a drug dealer, gang member.
How this man's life moved him from jail to prayer warrior with some of the biggest names in the NBA and the NFL. Studio 5 starts now. And welcome to Studio 5, coming to you this week from the San Francisco Bay Area. This is home to NBA's royal family, Steph and Ayesha Curry. We're sampling their season live. But before we get to that, let's take a look at this week's top 5 from Studio 5. At number 5.
You plead my cause, you right my wrongs.
Lauren Daigle earns top honors at the 47th Annual Dove Awards just 1 year after being named the Best New Artist in Christian Music. The Louisiana-born singer had the most nominations and was named Artist of the Year and Songwriter of the Year. The show also had this big surprise: an unannounced reunion performance from DC Talk. The trio was one of the most successful acts in contemporary music, but split 16 years ago. Number 4 is emotional.
Sometimes we sing the greatest redemption song of all time, and it fills us with thankfulness. That song is Amazing Grace.
3 years after suffering a debilitating stroke, country music legend Randy Travis moved audiences to tears with a Sunday surprise performance of the classic hymn.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
With his wife Mary and his longtime friend Garth Brooks by his side, Randy was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Today, God's proof of a miracle stands before you.
At number 3.
It's a true story. It's my story. And it's a story that begins in atheism.
Lee Strobel's story is a longtime best-selling book, and now The Case for Christ is headed to the big screen. It's in production in Atlanta, and Studio 5 is on set to bring you a behind-the-scenes look at the movie, which will be released in spring of 2017, with big-name actors like Academy Award winner Faye Dunaway and Mike Vogel. At number 2.
So what was the breakthrough moment?
Hillsong New York pastor Carl Lentz appeared on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday this week for a wide-ranging conversation that included talk of his baptizing pop star Justin Bieber.
His baptism was a moment where he was going through it and he was pulling himself up.
And the issue of racism in America.
I always tell people, let's just say to the ignorant white person who says, that's not real, it doesn't happen a lot. I said, what if it was just this situation?
What was just that one person?
Is it okay to have a conversation and give people a moment to freak out? Because if it was just that one situation, it would demand a reckoning still.
Yeah.
But it's not just that one.
At number 1, I Am Not Ashamed.
Well, everybody's got a story to tell.
I've always been drawn to hands, and I think it's because that's the way that we touch people.
Everybody's got a wound to be healed.
The story of Rachel Joy Scott is in theaters this week. She was the first to be killed in the 1999 Columbine school shooting, shot for her Christian faith.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, April the 20th, 1999. We have a clear, sunny spring morning in the Denver metro.
And those are this week's top 5 from Studio 5. As you see, we're here in the San Francisco Bay Area today. This is home to the Golden State Warriors and also home to Steph Curry, who is phenomenal on the court. Well, his wife is just as good in the kitchen. We're here to sample her seasoned life, a new cookbook We're talking food, faith, and family with Mrs. Curry. This is this week's Studio 5 interview. When Golden State Warriors guard Steph Curry takes the court, his biggest fan on the sidelines is his wife, Ayesha Curry. Have you always been a basketball fan?
No. Oh gosh, not at all. I come from a very artsy family. The only sort of introduction to sports that I had before meeting my husband was Buffalo Bills football and Doug Flutie Flakes. My dad grew up in Buffalo and has been a Bills fan all his life.
Mrs. Steph Curry is passionate about the game these days, cheering on her husband at least 95% of the home games. Away from the court.
Hi guys, Ayesha here. Today I have a recipe for you guys that is a staple in our household, especially at breakfast time. It is my brown sugar bacon.
Curry's passion is in the kitchen, sharing recipes and cooking tips with the millions who follow her online. And in her New York Times best-selling cookbook, The Seasoned Life, Food, Family, Faith, and the Joy of Eating Well. Was this a hard thing to do?
Yeah, it was. There were points when I wanted to give up. There were points that were enjoyable, and there were points where I just didn't want to do it anymore, but I pushed through, and I'm really happy that I did, because I now have this great book full of quick and easy recipes for everybody to enjoy, but more so for me to pass down to my daughters.
Your passion for cooking is clear, but there was a period you were pursuing acting.
Yeah, that's it's so funny because looking back now, it just seems like my childhood. I've done it since I was about 2. I left high school early and went out to LA to pursue it, and it got to a point where I realized that it wasn't for me. I guess I was pretty good at it. I was steadily working, but I didn't have a passion for it. And for a long time didn't know what my career was going to be, and I struggled with that for a while. But I prayed about it, I pressed through, and realized that it was staring me in my face my whole life.
Prayer and the gentle push from her husband
Salt Chef Curry with the pot, been cooking with the salt Chef Curry with the pot, boy,
is what prompted Ayesha to begin sharing her fun kitchen life, and fans quickly followed. How important do you think it is for people to acknowledge God in that process?
Oh, I think it's very important, because you could find yourself in a place you don't want to be really quickly. So it's I feel like it's important to make sure you're always praying, always talking, to have like clarity of mind and peace.
Ayesha regularly shares her family's Christian faith, acknowledging even online she's first a believer, then a wife, and then a mother. Now, you have a big social media following. I think you've got more than 4 million on Instagram. You're very open about your life, the ups and downs and so forth, and passionate. But that comes with critics too. You take some heat sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, 100% of people aren't gonna like what you do 100% of the time.
Fans fired back when Ayesha tweeted criticisms of the NBA, and again when she questioned fashion trends she found a little too revealing.
And so there's always, I mean, you could be an angel and somebody's still going to have something negative to say. And so I really take it with a grain of salt, no pun intended.
Your husband's phenomenal on the basketball court.
Thank you. In
the kitchen, what's the story?
He's getting better. You know, persistence is key. It didn't start out so well. And there's some stories about that in the book as well. Yeah. But he's gotten better.
And Ayesha knows a bit about persistence. In addition to a cookbook, she now has a show on the Food Network. But it came only after executives said no a few times.
I guess my my motto is let them say no until they say yes. Don't stop.
Set your DVRs. Ayesha's show is called Ayesha's Homemade. Still to come on Studio 5. Could there be a secret ingredient to the Golden State Warriors' winning ways?
We have such a close, knit of believers on this team. I've been able to start a Bible study on this team.
We're sitting down with power forward James Michael McAdoo, for a look at the team's secret court recipe. And welcome back to Studio 5. We're here in the San Francisco Bay Area, home to the Golden State Warriors, a team that gels extremely well on and off the court. One member of that dynamic team is NBA forward James Michael McAdoo. We're sitting down with him for this week's Faith on the Field.
My agency selected Golden State. For me to be able to come to this team with guys with such high character off the court, you know, we're like brothers, you know, and it translates to on the court. I've been able to start a Bible study on this team. Guys, you know, we're on the road, you know, we stay together, you know, we go before the Lord, and we're just thankful, you know, because we know that, you know, this opportunity that we have, it's not something that comes along every day. Guys have played in the NBA for 10, 15, 20 years. You know, there's guys in the Hall of Fame that haven't had the opportunity to play in the finals. So to be able to do that, it was honestly one of those things where, you know, God just tells you, you know, like, I got you. Jesus is my everything. To put it in the sports terms, you know, on teams, you have leaders, you know, you have captains. But in my life, you know, there's one captain. We play for our audience of one. One, that's all. Not for the fans, not for family, not for friends, you know, not even for our teammates. When I'm out there on the court, you know, playing on national TV, you know, I'm playing for our audience of one. I'm living my life for our audience of one. And that's all that really matters. But at the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow, I just want God to know that, you know, I'm doing all that I can for him and his kingdom.
He is such a dynamic player. You know, if you take a look in the distance there, you can see Alcatraz behind me, which kind of brings me to our next story. Earl Smith is chaplain for the Golden State Warriors and the San Francisco 49ers, but his life is one that was marred with trouble, including drugs, jail, and even gunfire. Take a look. Earl Smith is chaplain for the hottest team in the NBA, but
I'm not a basketball fan.
The Golden State Warriors may be the hottest team in the league.
But it's not so much what they're doing on the court, it's what I see among themselves. It's what I see, how they love each other, how they treat each other, how they're happy to be around each other.
Just last season, the team broke the record for most consecutive wins, passing the San Antonio Spurs record of 20 games back in 2012. And the team's leader, point guard Steph Curry, is eyeing records of his own. But he also has something more important than a jump shot.
He has a relationship that far exceeds a three-point shot, far exceeds accolades that are in the arena. He's a family man. He loves his wife.
And Smith credits positive, loving relationships as one key element to his ministry. Along with being the chaplain for the Warriors and the San Francisco 49ers, Smith has been ministering to prisoners for more than 25 years. And he says there's not much difference between a professional athlete and a prison inmate.
They both have numbers. Guys in prison have numbers. Athletes have numbers. If you think about it, the counties that most populate the prison system are also the counties that most populate professional sports. So these guys, there's a very small space between prison and professional sports in terms of, but there's a break.
Part of that break, Smith says, comes from a lack of positive influence, something he knows firsthand from his own childhood.
I was an angry kid. I was a drug dealer, gang member. More than anything, I was angry. I was angry about the way I grew up.
At age 19, after a drug deal went bad,
they brought someone to my house, and that person he brought to my house shot me. But I tell people it wasn't personal, it was business. It was based on my lifestyle.
He was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening bullet wounds.
The blessing is, that's not the end of the story.
With little chance of recovery, the doctor told Smith's father he would need a miracle to survive.
Doctor looked at my dad, told him I wasn't going to make it, I was going to die. And my dad grabbed the doctor. I was laying on the gurney, and he says, "Doctor, you better do what you do best. I'm going to do what I do best." And my dad walked out of the room, and I understood later that he went to pray. And as I was laying there, all of a sudden, when you're shot, everything, your body is burning up. Every place that a bullet hits is like hot heat, a poker. And all of a sudden, the burning stopped. all of a sudden I felt a peace and a quietness came over me, and I heard this voice say, "You're not going to die. I have something for you to do. You're going to be a chaplain at San Quentin Prison."
The doctor couldn't explain the recovery.
He didn't know what was going on, but I knew. Even though I didn't really have a true relationship with Jesus, I understood with grace. I understood when he talks about my grace is sufficient. There's more to life. And I was saved at that point. I fought it, but it was those holes, they closed up. That was nothing but Jesus.
And the healing didn't end after he left the hospital. Once he became a chaplain at the prison, he ran into the man who shot him.
I'm giving out Christmas cards, and I come upon this guy. I look at him, and I say to him, "What's your name?" And he jumps away from the bars, and he tells me who he is. And I just looked at him, and I realized going to Bible college and seminary and all these other things didn't mean anything. I heard about forgiveness, but I still hated him. And yet I was a chaplain, and I was asking, and I started to walk away, and I started to cry. God, why would you bring me all the way to this point, make me think I was okay? In actuality, I wasn't. I had to pass by him again on my way leaving. And when I got back to his cell, I looked at him, and he was at the back. His wall was against the cell wall. And I said, "I need to thank you. God used you to get to me." And those words came from Jesus. They didn't come from me.
From his own personal testimony, from drug dealer to chaplain, Earl Smith knows the impact your own experience can have. But also he knows God is bigger than where you come from and what you've done.
Whether it's with the Warriors or any person that I meet, I want them to know that there's hope. For me, when I talk about hope, I talk about, let's go back to where it starts. Let's talk about what it was that got you to this point. Because if we can discuss that, I can show you a Jesus that can get you beyond that.
Still ahead on Studio 5. The Bay Area is home to Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley is probably known mostly as a place of innovation, entrepreneurship, technology.
See why this author is making a case for a spiritual revival where the tech giants boom. Apple, Google, Facebook, tech companies you think about when you think about the Silicon Valley. You may not think about a revival, but the author of this book, Finding God in Silicon Valley, says you should.
Silicon Valley is a very interesting place. Silicon Valley is probably known mostly as a place of innovation, entrepreneurship, technology. It's a very diverse community, all sorts of ethnic groups, people from around the world. It's a place where technology thrives, entrepreneurship thrives.
What would make you say that there's a move of God happening here?
Well, it's been interesting. One of the things that I've found, you know, as I started to put together my blog and my book, is that people that have moved from outside Silicon Valley to this area, one of the things, they may come from a place, maybe from the South or from the Midwest, where it's sort of part of the culture to be a Christian. Mm-hmm. They've found that's not true when they move to Silicon Valley, but what they have found is in general, people that they meet who are followers of Christ tend to be more fully committed to followers of Christ. And it makes sense when you think of it, mm-hmm. because it's countercultural to be a Christian in Silicon Valley. One of the most encouraging things that I've found are the number of young entrepreneurs who are building their businesses to glorify Christ.
What are some examples of those?
Well, an example is a gentleman by the name of Neil Alston. He had a great position at Google. Well, he sensed a call from God to start a company to help people with the spiritual disciplines, and in particular prayer. So we started a company called Carpenter's Code. The prayer app is called Abide. He had this comment, he said, when God calls, you better show up.
Why is it important for this section of the world for God to be here?
My hope is that in Silicon Valley, if Silicon Valley can become not only known as a place of technology and innovation and wealth creation, but also known as a place of God, then the world will take notice.
Next up on Studio 5.
This man, superb in love and logic.
Going inside the vault, for a timeless message on freedom from the late and the legendary Ruby Dee. And we are just about out of time for this week's show, coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area. But before we get to the final word, let's take a look ahead to next week. A Lecrae protege, hip-hop artist Trip Lee is the man on the mic, sharing music and a personal struggle.
You suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome. What is that?
That's a good question. You know, doctors don't even understand it very well.
Hear how the husband, father, pastor, and best-selling author manages his busy life and pushes others to rise up to do the same. And that's just one story from next week's rundown. I'm giving the final word today to a legendary actress, Ruby Dee. She's my all-time favorite, and she is definitely uplifting.
When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as the earth, when it belongs at last to our children, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, reflex action, when it is finally one, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians, this man, this Negro, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, alien. This man, superb in love and logic, shall be remembered, oh, not with statues, rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, lives fleshing the dream of this needful, beautiful thing.
And that is the final word for this edition of Studio 5. Ruby Dee, you are certainly very well missed. Until next time, reach out and touch me at Ephraim Graham on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. We'll see you then.